The memory of the Overlord is as clear to me as if it happened just yesterday. He was tall, proud, a true Zerathian among us. Magnificent. You think we of the warrior caste are merely brutes, valuing strength and size above all else? Don't be so quick to judge. The Overlord was the best of us. He was larger, yes, but also faster and more cunning. His brilliance was unmatched. He earned his rank during the war against the Zevo, a conflict you should study. That war was our finest moment. His finest moment. He rose through the ranks back then, from commanding a regiment to leading a division, and after the Battle of Rolox, he was elevated to Overlord. Do you know he never lost a battle? Not a single one. In all his years, he never tasted defeat. What happened to him, he didn't deserve that. What? All right, I will try to focus on the events you asked for, but I will never apologize for defending him. He was the best of us. He understood before any of us. You made him the one you could blame for your own mistakes and follies. Even the warrior caste turned on him. It was unjust. I believe that. I will never not believe it. Fine. The events of the Battle of Rolox Station. Yes, I am aware of the political and diplomatic build-up to the war. I was his aide and senior adjunct. My role was to remain apprised of all the things he didn't need to focus on. Understand, the Overlord was proud to be a warrior caste. Centuries ago we agreed that only in the Union could we as a species move forward. Warriors focus on our own. Make sure that if the Union calls upon us to act, we do so with intent and brilliance. He employed me to keep an eye on events elsewhere. His world was one of unit preparedness, combat readiness, morale, logistics, and supply. Having our armed forces ready to deploy in defense of the Union is all-consuming. I was his eyes and ears. So yes, I was aware of the talks between us and the humans, the negotiations, the demands. I am not a scholar caste. I cannot comment on the failure of talks with the humans. My job was to alert him to the fact that simply the talks had failed. The humans had refused to accept our demands. As such a state of war between the Union and the Human Alliance was to exist from dawn on homeworld that day. He received the news with his usual stoic intensity. We had observed the humans from a distance. We knew they had a long history of warfare, but they were half the size of even our smallest warrior caste, and their technology was no more advanced than ours. We also knew that their forces on planet Bazilla amounted to just a few regiments at most. The Overlord understood that what was needed was not merely a victory, but an overwhelming one. That's why he insisted on deploying the entire army of Umbra Twilight to Bazilla. He knew exactly what it would accomplish. Humans are warriors too. You scholars fail to grasp this, but violence is a language. Hold your judgments. You are too academic to truly understand. Violence is a language, a universal one. War is as well. Warriors, regardless of their species, use violence to communicate. The Zevo understood this. The humans, being an intelligent and warlike race, would recognize the message. A massive force of our warriors, able to assemble on a distant world within a single day of the war's onset, would speak volumes. They would witness the ferocity and speed of our initial strikes. It would be more than just a few early skirmishes. It would be communication without words, the language of violence, the poetry of war. We landed. 6 whole divisions of infantry, 2 war machine battalions, and a cohort of Zerathians. What? No! We did not have fleet support. We knew the human fleet was being kept around their home system to prevent our fleet attacking them, but that meant they were bottled up behind our blockade. The Overlord saw we had a window to use this for our advantage, cultivate a ground war, win swiftly, present the victories to the scholar class, and allow them to force the humans to abandon Bazilla. Of course it was a sound policy, you judgmental little scholar. I told you, the Overlord was brilliant. Give me a moment. Do you have anything to drink? Of course you don't. The demilitarized zone between the Union and the humans was on the 4th continent, 7 Romag wide, a line on our maps. The humans had 1 military base. 9 Romag behind the DMZ. Rolock Station. After that there was nothing for a good 40 Romag. The Overlord's orders were simple. Cross the border, attack, and take Rolock Station. This was to be the opening salvo. After we took it, the army was to divide into 3 separate thrusts, each forcing the humans to spread their forces elsewhere. It was simple, yet it was brilliant. So like the Overlord, the opening elements of our forces crossed the border, while the Overlord was still organizing the main body, where we had landed on our side of the DMZ. Scar leader Floraza was trusted. He had served for a dozen years, and his division, the Rising Waters, had honors in over 30 battles in its long history. 7,000 of the finest of the warrior caste mounted upon transports and crossing the human border. We heard the explosions from the rally point. Soon after, Floraza contacted us. Human minefields. It still astounds me that the Union failed to notice the humans had filled the land behind the DMZ with so many mines. You scholars seemed shocked. But wasn't intelligence gathering your responsibility? Regardless, we found no way through. The Rising Waters had been halted in their tracks. The Overlord ordered the engineering battalion forward to clear a path for the main army to advance. We were nearly ready when word came of even greater losses. The engineers had succeeded, but the humans launched air units against them. Our army had its own air support, of course, but that's when we began receiving reports of the superiority of the human flyers. Their ships were smaller than ours, minuscule, even, and while ours matched their speed, theirs could perform maneuvers that our pilots had never seen before. We sent up a squadron to counter the air units attacking our engineers, but before long, half our air wing had been deployed, and we were losing. This was when the Overlord decided he had to act fast. Floraza was an inspired leader, but it was clear the humans had greater forces than we expected. Immediately, he ordered Scar leader Turagav to send 2 regiments of the Division of Furious Fire forward to support the Rising Waters. These were specialist anti-air units. The idea was to attack the human aircraft from ground as well as air. It succeeded. The human pilots were truly skilled. They would perform impossible moves to avoid our missiles. But in time we brought down many of their aircraft. They withdrew, but the cost had been murderous. We had lost a third of our air wing, with more needing repair. Still it had the desired effect. With no aircraft to attack them, our engineers made quick work of deep minefields and created a battalion-sized hole in them. The remains of the Rising Waters surged through, with the now fully ready divisions of Furious Fire and Ferocious Intent following up. 21,000 warriors now surging forwards. That's when the ambushes started. The humans were dug, it seems, and well hidden. What do you mean we should have expected it? The warrior caste depends upon intelligence from the scholar caste. We were told there was a single human regiment upon the whole planet. You told us this. Any failure in intelligence was on your hands, not ours. The first we knew, the humans began attacking from well-entrenched positions all around us. So many attacks. Precise snipers would target individual warriors with utter precision. Sudden explosive bursts of ferocious automatic weaponry would open fire from close range. The Rising Waters would hold, regroup, and attack. But each time the humans had escaped from their defensive holes, or our warriors would zero in on one cunningly concealed position and then be attacked by another nearby. It was soon after that we realized the humans had created a killing zone for us. To get to Rolock Station, we would have to pay a blood price. Understand, we warrior castes never throw away lives for no good reason, ever, but we also understand a blood price. We have no fear of paying it. The Overlord asked Scar leader Floraza if he understood what was required. He said he did. The honor of the Rising Waters was at stake. They would not shirk from it. The whole division surged forward. It was bloody work. Ambush after ambush. Sniper after sniper. Still they surged forward. The name Rising Waters. It was a ferocious name. Like actual rising waters, they stop at nothing, driven by clear intent. Within only a Magullah, we had advanced a full 3 Romag. mostly on foot. Then I think it was the 11th Company. They had been on the right and discovered a region without ambushes. It was covered by more landmines. Scar leader Floraza saw it for what it was, an area they had used mines on, not ambushes. No warriors, no hidden locations. He called up the engineers to clear it and the anti-air units to cover them. He hoped the 11th Company had discovered a weakness in the human defensive lines. What happened? The humans had laid mines a full half romag deep before this region, right across the area we were fighting in. But these were not detonated by proximity. Each one was dormant until the humans triggered them remotely. And they did, all at once. The explosion was a deep sound. The mines had been buried deep so as to avoid detection, but each one had enough charge to take out an area big enough to kill a squad of warriors. What? Of course we had not checked. Our warriors were encountering defensive position after defensive position. They were fighting for their lives. We should have been told the humans had placed so much ordnance into the region. All we had been told was that the only human activity near the DMZ had been farming droids. So do not demand why our forces had walked into such an ambush. Understand, these mines were planted not only to be detonated remotely, but close to the humans' own positions. If we had not destroyed them, their own mines would have. All that mattered to these humans was we had brought up a lot of warriors into land clearly intended to be destroyed and had positioned their own men to make it so we wouldn't suspect it. Losses? From that detonation alone, we lost 1,000 warriors. Many thousand more injured, and the anti-air was gone, and the engineering battalion had been wiped out. It was masterful. At once the human air fighters returned. The Overlord understood now. I could see it in his eyes. He understood what kind of battle the humans would give us. How? Are you not listening? Violence is a language. The humans were speaking to us through their actions in battle, revealing how they fought and how they thought. It's clear from your expressions that you don't understand this, but we did. The Overlord did. I could see it in the way his eyes narrowed and his breathing slowed. He was listening carefully to what they were telling us. What happened to Scar leader Floraza? He was standing directly over a deep mine when it detonated. He was among the missing, but we assumed he had been obliterated. The Overlord's orders? What other choice did he have? We had to push forward. Retreat would have sent the wrong message. The rising waters had been decimated, along with units from the Division of Ferocious Intent. We had no option but to advance. So, the other two divisions surged ahead. The Overlord ordered the entire remaining air wing into action to engage the human air units and launch a renewed offensive. It was then that we discovered they had two types of air units: fast interceptors and slower ground suppression craft. Our air wing was occupied with their fast craft, but as our infantry advanced, their ground suppression units began to target our forces. Our forward units came under fire from enemies beyond the range of our infantry. We brought up as many anti-air units as we could, and the Overlord deployed both the Division of Cold Murder and then unleashed the Zorathians. Humans had nothing that could match such war machines. The height of 20 warrior casts stood on top of each other, armed with 6 dozen guns and armor plating able to withstand nuclear weaponry. They moved swiftly to the front line and began to punch a hole through the human defenses. Yes, we noticed the humans had nothing to stop them, but you don't understand how it went. The Zorathians would just blitz and destroy and move forward, our men behind them. Yet the humans in defensive positions did not flee. They remained to interdict our warriors, even now cut off from their own lines. The humans fought with suicidal bravery. But by now, all our warriors had a measure of how to fight them. We would have to allow the humans open fire first, but quickly found cover and would destroy their emplacements just as quickly. Meanwhile, the Zorathians surged forward like a sharp edge of a blade, and our forces followed on. Cleaning up the ground behind the Zorathians was slow, but steady progress was being made. No, we were not worried when the humans claimed air superiority. They simply had more fighters than us, and their ships had better maneuverability. The air wing was gone, but their air units had nothing that could impact the Zorathian. They had enough guns on it to effectively destroy any weapon before it hit. No, we had never heard of electromagnetic weapons before that battle. Its use stunned us. To see the giant Zorathians brought to a dead stop like that, all weapon systems dead, all guns rendered useless. Of course, the Overlord considered that a reason to regroup, but he couldn't. By now, the humans were attacking us not just at the front of the army, but also at the rear. Human slow suppression aircraft had made their way around the battle and had attacked our medical stations. They attacked our medical stations. Just give me a moment. I'm fine. It upsets me as all. I'm fine. Where was I? Yes, the medical stations. The humans unleashed flame-based weapons. They would fire their ordnances upon our reserve, and then when that was gone, their pilots would fly their craft into our units to detonate upon impact. We lost half our mechanized war machine regiment as it stood parked ready for deployment. They destroyed ammunition dumps back at the landing site. The entire army was now engaged. Understand, by this stage, our entire army was deployed out in a battle formation 5 whole Romag long and 2 Romag wide, and the humans were attacking us everywhere. The Overlord saw this and did the only thing he could. He brought forward the division of Steel Resolve. It was led by Scar Master Bilgax. Bilgax was his rival, the only warrior caste who we thought could ever replace him. I remember their meeting. Around us, explosions and occasional sniper fire. The Overlord, never once cowering, almost begging the humans to make him a target. He explained his plan to Bilgax. And Bilgax, he saw its brilliance at once. A whole division on foot, 7,000 warriors to charge. To just be a mass of bodies. To use our speed and natural abilities. No matter what the humans had planned. That would be beyond them. It would be too large for minefields to kill all, too many for snipers to shoot all. We would act like lava, unrelenting and unstoppable. Yes, both the Overlord and Bilgax knew what the losses would be, but we had to regain the momentum of the battle. Our only alternative was to cower and be taken apart by the humans. Boldness was the only option. The Overlord, he insisted he lead the charge. Bilgax relented, but insisted that he take the lead, and the Overlord remained deep in the scrum of bodies. I remember his words to the Overlord. When Steel Resolve reaches that human fortress, you just be there to lead us to avenge our fallen. The Overlord saw the wisdom. What? Of course I went with him. That was my place. By his side, the order was given. Understand, the whole army was ordered to surge forward. Steel Resolve just went faster and with utter cold fury. What can I say? More minefields cleared by warriors using themselves to clear a path. Fleets of auto drones rising out of the ground, literally thousands of them, firing automatic guns before charging our lines and shooting at us. Air units launching rocket after rocket at us before diving into our lines. Hidden defensive positions ambushing whatever they saw before we destroyed them. Then their version of war machines appeared and opened fire. The army took it. The army would not be stopped. We paid the blood price. We extracted the blood price. Eventually we reached Rolock Station. Bilgax was dead. The Overlord was with the remains of the division of Cold Resolve. We surged the gates and burst in. The humans had apparently thrown everything into defending the territory to this place. There was no one left to defend it. We took the military station quickly, and it was then that I saw him break. The Overlord. I saw his spirit break before me. What we discovered, it broke him. I saw it in his eyes. Violence is a language, you see. There is a purity to it, a simplicity. Warriors speak the poetry of war. And as the Overlord gazed down at the body of the human commander, his body riddled with slugs from our guns, he finally deciphered what the humans were saying, and it broke him. It was immediately after the battle that he not only halted the advance, but sent the communique back to home world that the Union was to surrender at once. It was not an act of cowardice. It was an act of realism. Don't you dare judge him like that. He saw at that moment what it took you a full year to realize. We surrendered, didn't we? We lost the war, did we not? And the Overlord saw it after that first battle. And it took you what? Another 70 battles or so before you realized he was right. He was right. That battle, that single opening battle, we had lost 7,700 warriors, nearly 8,000 killed, and 23,000 injured, and the humans had lost one. Their entire battle force had been automated, lethal automated machines. All ran from a single station. It's why their air units could maneuver so rapidly. There was no pilot contending with the forces of gravity in charge. Why did they not run away? There was no one to run away. We had been fighting, and it had been bloody. We had thought at least we had killed hundreds of the humans, maybe thousands. And at that moment we saw we had killed one, just one. Their message to us, which the Overlord saw at that moment, was that we would never face an army of them. We would only ever face them in ones and twos. But each human was able to deploy an army by themselves. The Overlord understood. This is why he said we should surrender. He saw the war as it was going to happen. But you didn't listen. None of you did. And over 1 million of us have died. And we still lost. You executed him for telling the truth. You called him a coward. You blamed him for the losses. Said he was incompetent. Forbade him from speaking out. Appointed lesser warriors to lead us. Silenced all of us who worked with him. Stationed me on Jamalio. Oh, I got to watch as you lied about casualties. Proclaimed victories to hide the fact you were sending more and more to die. Saw you launch our fleet in a desperate attempt to distract the humans. 1 million dead. And the humans lost what? Oh, yes, millions of their machines. But how many humans died? How many humans died? Admit it, less than 300. That includes civilians, doesn't it? The language of violence is simple. You use violence to tell your opponent that they should not fight you. You use violence to hurt your foe. So he understands that to attack you is folly. Violence isn't a thing unto itself. It is a primal and universal means of communication that transcends all species in this galaxy. The humans told us that day via violence what was to come. Their machines meant they could and would inflict something primal and horrendous upon us. That they understood violence better than we ever did. That they had discarded distracting ideas like bravery and honor. They had stripped out the individual from war. And without living beings having to fight, suddenly ideas and concepts used to soften the impact of violence or to glorify violence, or how we even spoke of violence, were removed. Stripped it down to its bare bones, bereft of all the trappings of a civilization. When they learned to remove themselves from war, they suddenly saw no need for adornment and hyperbole. War is violence, and violence is a language. Shorn of everything. All war is murder, is it not, scholar? The humans as a species simply recognized this and created machines that allowed them to murder their foes. No pride in military traditions, no parades, no need for an army even. Just one trained operator. One trained murderer and their instruments of death. You can't win a war against such things. Our men were screaming and shouting and strategizing and being heroic, and they had one operator who might as well be staring at us under a microscope. Like a game. Simple mathematics. The humans understood how to use violence in a way we do not. It is an absolute, brutal. Only the Overlord could grasp this back then. And he understood. After that one battle, he understood, and you killed him for telling you the message you finally got after you sacrificed 1 million of us. Even now you don't listen. The war is over and you interview me to learn what we could do better next time. The scholar cast talks of getting ready to overcome the humans if we ever fight again. Don't you understand? Did you not listen? Do you think they will be standing still? They learned how we fight. They have seen us. Each battle we lost, we were talking to them also, showing them how we think. They will be ready for us if we try again. They too will adjust, adapt, learn, change the mathematical variables. The language of violence is a two-way conversation, and you can't unlearn what they've discovered. With all due respect, I don't care about your protocols. I resign in disgust if there were any purpose for a warrior cast away from battle. So I'll follow whatever orders you pass down through my commanders. But understand this, scholars. I hold you all in utter contempt. Your words are nothing but lies. At least the humans are honest, brutal, murderous, and cold. Yes, but honest. Monsters? Do you still not grasp it? Humans are not monsters. They despise war. Only a species that hates war would create such a way of fighting, a way of violence that doesn't justify itself, that leaves no room for ego or pride. Their approach is cold, methodical. They hold war in cold contempt, viewing it merely as a function, a means to an end. When they communicate with us, they do so with a cold purity. That purity ensures we can't win. We have an entire warrior caste, but they've stripped the concept of warriors from their society. We speak the language of violence through a translator. They speak it pure. They speak it true.